Happy Friday, everyone. Um, yeah. So today's stream is just going to be me doing a bit of initial research for the Hippy Dippy recruitment podcast, which is Dylan Burns' show. If you don't already know of it, what are you even doing on Twitch? Because this is he's a very good content producer, and in particular, his knowledge of foreign affairs is genuinely impressive. And he produces some very good debate discussion shows. The general format is for righties and for lefties. I am apparently a lefty for the purpose of this, which makes sense. I'm more aligned with the left these days than the right, I'd say. So it's probably the right placement. And if I can only find his exact channel name, why is Twitch being funny? What are you doing? I set up a shout out. Dylan Burns TV, that's it. Right, so let's see if that works. No? Ah, there we go. Oh, no, maybe not. Oh, right, I spelled it wrong. That would, I'm just being an idiot here. That worked, there we go. Right, I've managed to shout out. Okay, so, yeah, I'm going to be appearing on his show on Sunday evening this time, and the topics being discussed are these four. So, should masks be mandatory? Should health insurance be obligated to cover birth control? Do you support the death penalty? And a bonus question that we might get to at the end, which is, should the military be allowed to use torture? Um, so I am obviously not a philosopher or a political scientist, but most people on Twitch aren't anyway, so we're all discussing this as kind of somewhat as amateurs, like I say, except for Dylan and some other people who do have expertise in specific subjects. Obviously, my expertise lies in a very niche area of neuroscience, um, but I like talking about political topics, and these are issues we should all engage with, so I'm going to barrel ahead as a complete uh, non-expert and discuss these anyway. So let's start with number one. Should masks be mandatory? Put this off to the side so we can see that. And yeah. Right, so I guess the core of my argument is probably going to be pretty much a consequentialist one. Um, given that, well, consequentialist one, working from the assumption that I hopefully demonstrate that masks not only help you individually, the user, but help everyone around you. And coming from uh, sort of liberal or libertarian principles, I think it's reasonable to say that if people want to engage in risky activity, then perhaps within reason we should allow that. I'm very supportive of people going skydiving if they want to, or horse riding, or engaging in combat sports, or any of these things that are undoubtedly a risk to the individual engaging in them. Um, but the right for one to harm oneself ends somewhere around the point that one causes harm to others or seriously risk causing harm to others, because we probably should be able to. I'll start writing some of this down. So, um, right. I'm typing crap today. Okay, so key point. So that seems pretty reasonable. Um, the risk, I think, doesn't need to be 100%. You know, it doesn't need to be. We can all agree that my punching you is a bad thing, because my punching you has a 100% risk. I mean, I'm not very strong, but assuming I was stronger, has a very high, nearly 100% risk of doing you harm, whether that's causing you pain or potentially, knocking you down and you hit your head and you die. But there's almost a certainty of harm taking place there. With masks, um, the the probability of harm is considerably lower, because even if one does have a COVID infection, or infection of any other disease, coughing doesn't guarantee infection, or talking or any other activity doesn't guarantee infection, and the mask doesn't guarantee protection, but it does substantially lower the risk of transmission taking place. And we generally in society, I think quite rightly, uh, restrict people's ability to engage in activity that's very risky to others. For example, if, in America, firing guns inside cities, or firing them up into the sky. Most of the time, if you fire a gun in a city, it's not going to hit anything of consequence. It might hit a fence or something, or a tree, some pavement, but you know, there's a lot of space and there's not many people. But it's reasonable to restrict it, because there is a risk of hitting someone, and the risk is sufficient that the consequence is dire enough that we should probably restrict people engaging in that risky behaviour. Um, Similarly, I think it's reasonable to have some legal requirements on what people do surrounding transmission. So, um, okay, I'll probably tidy these up later off stream, but uh, now I think one point worth bringing up, not least because if I were opposing uh, wearing of masks, it's probably something that I would bring up, is that we should be very this sort of hold over my libertarian days. We should be very cautious when creating a new law. Um, every new piece of legislation ultimately relies on the threat of violence, possibly lethal violence, to enforce it. And we've seen with George Floyd, and the I can't breathe guy before him, the guy who was selling loose cigarettes in New York. Um, uh, Eric Garner, that's it. Um, so he was selling uh, individual cigarettes, and uh, yeah, so put let's say petty minor. So we should probably be very careful about implementing a new law. It's something that I often have a disagreement with more legislatively happy leftists is say leftists people on the left lefties um, is that while there are many behaviours we might want to regulate and many uh, activities people engage with that in an ideal world they wouldn't, we should be quite reluctant to use the force of the state's claimed monopoly on violence, in order to achieve our ends. Um, there are often better ways of doing it that don't involve calling up a bunch of guys with guns to come and threaten people into submission. And while we might be able to think of um, law enforcement techniques, organisations that aren't so violent, and it'd be nice to implement those in the future. If we're talking about the current West and particularly the US, any new law comes with um, a risk of violence to the populace. So we need to be confident that the law we're proposing is of sufficient value to justify the occasional death of someone who's breaking a law, breaking a law that we might think is relatively minor. Um, Something like the restriction on selling loose cigarettes probably doesn't come up to that. I mean, maybe we should have some sort of restriction on, licensed shops and maybe civil penalties, but giving the ability for the cops to arrest people over it doesn't seem great. Um, and even one death every few years or even every decade or so probably isn't worth the benefit we get from restricting loose cigarettes. I mean, maybe it's justifiable in terms of reducing smoking rates, and that results in fewer lost life years. If you want to make a public health argument, possibly. Um, but I think we can probably make a better case for masks. So we should probably um, look into some actual data. Uh, let's see. Um, uh, right. Let's see. So we can look at the Oxford COVID-19 study. I should try not to be biased towards Oxford studies, but we do a lot of good research here. Um, oh, I saw this study. This is more of a methods thing, but nonetheless quite interesting. Uh, many of these masks. So yeah, it's an optical-based method for testing the efficacy of different masks, which is obviously useful if we're going to start mandating them, because um, they we want to know which ones we're actually going to mandate. And this has been going around, I think, as I think it's this one, people claiming that yeah, because of this graph, people claiming that fleece, fuck off, that fleece is worse than nothing, which that's not what that says to me. Look at how wide those error bars are. That says to me that fleece is probably about in the same ballpark as nothing, maybe a little bit better, but with error bars that wide, I've seen a bunch of journalists go, look, the average of fleece is a higher transmission droplet count than nothing, therefore it must be worse. Um, Similarly, bandana is definitely better than nothing. With those wide error bars, I wouldn't be so certain. Um, don't get me wrong, great paper, interesting, useful methodologies that could be very beneficial for testing masks, not least because we probably don't actually need to test these shitty ones where we can all be reasonably confident that like a bandana isn't going to be as good as a actual surgical mask. But yeah, comparing between professional masks, it's very good. But yeah, science reporting, honestly, fucking. Um, right, let's have a look at some of these papers. Mm. So yeah, let me just check. Right. Okay. Systematic review, meta-analysis to investigate optimum distance. Distance face masks. Studies identified 172 observational studies across 16 countries and 6 continents with no randomized controlled trials and 44 relevant comparative studies in healthcare and non-healthcare settings. Total of 697 patients. Sorry, total of 25,697 patients. Gotta use commas. I suppose internationally they don't like commas much. Anyway, transmission of viruses was lower with physical distancing of 1 meter or more compared with physical distances of less than a meter. Makes sense. Protection was increased at distance was lengthened. Face mask use could result in a large reduction in risk of infection. Um, let's see, adjusted odds ratio of 0.15 with a 95% confidence interval of 0.07 to 0.34, which is pretty much, no matter how you slice it, that's a substantial reduction of risk in transmission, with strong associations with N95 and similar respirators. Makes sense. So that's certainly generally saying transmission is lower, though we should look into that a little bit more because the key question for my core argument is going to be whether it prevents transmission to other people. Studies that demonstrate it prevents transmission to the user aren't as relevant, although, of course, getting infected is a risk to other people. But the kind of the killer shot here is, I think, going to be that I can demonstrate that it reduces one's risk of infecting others, which of course it does. I just need to find the best, clearest citations for that. Um, we had masks sent to us from Anne's mum at the beginning of COVID. We've worn them every time we go anywhere we go. Seriously, being understand people's problem with wearing them. Yeah, it's at worst they're like a bit uncomfortable, which I mean, clothes are often a bit uncomfortable. I mean, that's another point I'm going to make. Just that like we mandate wearing clothes in public, and I would much rather, see someone's genitals than get coronavirus. So, if we're willing to accept some kind of legal restriction on nudity, which I don't think we necessarily should. Like I kind of against mandatory clothing laws, at least for top halves. Um, one can, reasonably make an argument, I guess, that like a bunch of dudes wandering around with intimidating erections probably isn't something we want to be like encouraging in society. So maybe it's the laws surrounding clothing are justified, but I think one can certainly make a stronger case for uh, requiring one to wear a mask than one can requiring one to wear pants. Um, I mean, of course, one of the issues I should right. So I'm just going to start jotting down bullet points. Mandated. Um, yeah. So let's see. Oh, excuse me. Um, so uh, I think the Japanese did a video showing two people conversing. They filmed them with a special camera and picked up droplets released and shows both conversations with and without masks. Yeah, there's been some really good demonstrators. What I'm trying to focus on here is more empirical evidence that I can link to. Um, though I don't know, having a demonstration video to show on stream, if you can find that, that might be useful to because I don't know. Um, uh, like I want to make the argument from a rigorous scientific perspective, but having a more like frankly most of the people listening probably aren't going to read if I link a Lancet systematic review like probably aren't going to read the whole thing, whereas if there's a video that like clearly demonstrates it, um, that's probably worth having as well. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, if you know where that is, that would probably be quite useful. I always, often my problem is in debates, I will kind of go for the, go for like winning, excuse me, oh god, lots of burps. I will go for like winning the argument in my mind, which isn't always the most persuasive option. If I can produce a bunch of links to a load of book chapters and reviews and so forth. I might convince anyone who's willing to actually read through all of it, but not everybody does, and that's fair enough. I certainly don't read through everything random people link me. Um, One has to take somewhat of a restrictive approach, lest one end up just spending all the time reading books linked to you by communists. Mhm. Although saying that, I've read through the intro of Conquest of Bread, and I am intending to actually read the whole thing, though it's not the most like compellingly written book. Also, I think Kropotkin is being misleading about the like pre-19th century history, but I don't know enough about pre-19th century history to be confident. Oh, cool. Oh, it is. Okay, so it is actually a paper as well. So this. Oh, fuck off. Fucking no, I'm never going to unblock anything. Uh, that's really good. Oh, thanks, Josh. Yeah, that is good to link. So yeah, I'm gonna put that in. Right, put sources. Right. I only found out you can do this the other day, but you can drag and drop links into Google Docs, and it formats it as like a sensible link. This was mind blowing to me. Because I'd always been, copying it and then writing out a title, then Control K to put in a link, and bah. Um, okay, so that makes things a bit easier. So yeah, that is really cool. Thank you. Um, Come on, probably put some bullet points, otherwise it'll just be one big blue underlined mess. Okay, so systematic review with meta-analysis is good. Um, let's just check what their inclusion criteria were. Um, right, so use the Cochrane model, which is good because I can, if necessary, speak a bit about Cochrane reviews. For those who don't know, Cochrane is a collaborative scientific organisation that both sort of sponsors and runs their own reviews and meta-analyses, and provides a bunch of information for other people to do them. And they're generally regarded as like the gold standard of clinical evidence for a given treatment or intervention. What's that, treatment? Um, so like if it's, I don't want to say if it's published in the Lancet and using Cochrane methodology, it's good necessarily, but they're encouraging indicators. At least if it's a review published in the Lancet. The Lancet does some great reviews. Primary literature in the Lancet, um, it kind of sometimes suffers from that, high impact journal wanting to publish all the latest science, so sometimes they publish crap. Uh, Interesting crap, but sometimes crap. Okay, so hand searched preprint servers and resource sensors. Did not limit search by language. Um, okay, collection comes. Outcomes of interest were risk of transmission to people in healthcare and healthcare settings by those infected. Okay, so this is what we excuse me. This is exactly what we are interested in because it's the uh, risk of transmission from people to other people rather than the risk of like getting receiving transmission. Um, so yeah, that is. I mean, this is pretty convincing. Um, let's maybe get uh, a couple more just to just to really dig that knife in and twist if anybody wants to argue that face coverings, like masks, aren't effective at reducing transmission. Because with that visualization, if we get some slides, so this is, what's the methodology here? Inclusion. What's your effectiveness? Okay, so we're doing a uh, big long meta thing. I might put on maybe some free streaming music, so my headset doesn't just bloody uh, cut out. Let's just put on some. Wait, is this? Oh no, no, that's free to stream, not free to use on a stream. Oh fuck it, I just. Except my headset's gonna cut out every so often. Um, okay, let's see. Evidence for effectiveness of public wearing of masks in gatherings and community-based studies. Okay, this is good to know because it's specifically talking about transmission in the wild as opposed to just in medical facilities, uh, which is what we want because obviously we're discussing general mask wearing rather than mask wearing by medical providers. Okay, so this seems pretty solid. I'm going to do a more thorough read through of this off stream probably, because you probably don't want to see me just reading through like 30 pages of tables and whatnot. But that is pretty encouraging. Yeah, so those three are a good start. Considering, it's just the first few links. Uh, it's not exactly difficult to find. I wonder if anyone's going to seriously. I mean, presumably someone's going to argue against this. I don't know. There have been a few topics where it's kind of just everyone agrees. Um, I used to go to this. One of the reasons I'm looking forward to this show is that the format's not too dissimilar from Rum and Rights, which was a debate and drinking society at Oxford, or still is. Um, well, I'm not sure if they've had any meetups recently. Anyway, debate and drinking society I went to that was far better than Labour's bickering or the Tories' port and policy, because it was non-partisan. So we got a bunch of people with very wacky views there, including me at the time. Like ANCAP, libertarian sort of region, um, though of the liberal sort, not the Hoppian sort. Uh, and yeah, it was good fun just discussing topics without anyone necessarily being experts in it, but being able to put opinions out there and have them criticised. Now, of course, the audience for this is going to be substantially larger. Roman Rights had, 20 or so attendees as opposed to the hundreds or whatnot. I don't know Dylan Byrne's usual viewer numbers, but I imagine it's pretty solid. Um, but, general spirit, it should be vaguely similar. Mm. Universal use face masks for success against COVID-19. Um, okay, this just seems to be someone, random person's systematic review, which went fine, but it's probably better to focus on limited number. Um, so, I'm going to organise some analogies. So, clothes comparison, analogies and comparisons. Um, Seatbelts, generally like safety equipment. Uh, so actually, maybe other car safety mechanisms would be better because seatbelts, primarily at least, protect the user, whereas the crumple zones, because crumple zones both protect um, the person being hit and or the person in the car colliding and the person being collided with. Um, yeah, crumple zones might be better. Crimple zones? I don't know what a crimple zone is. Um, if anybody knows more about car collisions than me, do feel free to correct, because I'm not 100% certain they reduce damage to pedestrians. Let's find out. Okay, so the NCAP has added right, okay. Yeah, so the NCAP, which I believe NCAP getting an NCAP rating is legally mandated if you're going to sell a car um, in the uh, in relevant markets. NCAP is the US one, and then Euro NCAP is the European one, I guess. I don't know. Um, not certain. I should learn more about. Was NCAP just the? Uh, let's see. Okay, NCAP is a generic term, but first created in the US. Right. Okay, a little bit off topic, but um, though if it is fully voluntary, that introduces a bit of disanalogy. Hmm. Let's have a look. It's not super relevant because um, and it seems like one of those agencies that's kind of de facto required, even if it's like theoretically voluntary, because you can't sell the car in most locations, and you can't. Let's see. So seatbelts are mandatory by legislation. Okay, so a once the federal motor vehicle safety standards came into effect, vehicles not certified by the maker or importer as compliant with US safety standards were no longer legal to import, so effectively banned. Okay, that's good enough, close enough. Um, Safety. Okay. Um, so, like, I want a decent. The opening statement's kind of the important thing uh, to actually prepare, and then I want some general arguments that I can bring up in the free-form one, along with some extra evidence I can cite and whatnot. Um, and then the closing statement is kind of go over what's being discussed and give any responses to outstanding points. Um, Plus, of course, I think the whole thing is going to last like 3 hours, so I'll have time. Most of the time I won't be talking, so I'll have time to like Google while it's going on. Um, so I think this like core argument for masks is pretty solid. I mean, unless we're going to like deny that at least part of the purpose of the law is to protect people from harming each other, which like if we're going to deny that, then maybe we're going full anarchist, in which case we can have that discussion, but then we want to discuss like what should the community protection program or the Bob's Police Incorporated prevent you from doing. So in essence, we're still arguing whether it should be illegal or not. It's just we're disagreeing about what we call uh, the people who should be enforcing it. Um, but yeah, unless we think that there should just be no control of people whatsoever, um, I guess one has to argue that COVID isn't very dangerous at all, and that even a high risk of transmission is acceptable. So let's just for shits and giggles, let's find the uh, let's go to our world and data and check the US death rate just to underline the fact that it's actually quite a big deal. Let's see if we can get a direct link so I can just easily easily share it. Let's see. Case fatality rate, no. We want confirmed deaths, 7-day rolling average per million people. Um, so yeah, we can point to the let's get rid of Asia because that's all really low and like there we go. Okay, right. Can we not just do all continents? Why is this going so slow? God damn it. Okay, let's just take off some random countries. Okay, hide countries under 1 million people. That's a good start. Um, okay, obviously not the most exciting stream today, for which I apologise if you were expecting something a little bit more um, active, but I figured it would be interesting to do a little bit of research on stream, and doing on stream means I'm actually going to do it as opposed to procrastinating. This doesn't actually produce a direct link. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Right. So yeah, we can see that countries that haven't controlled it well are, and obviously this doesn't really say much about masks because while a lot of the countries down here have been good on masks and a lot of the countries up here haven't, um, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the lack of masks that's causing the spread. I mean, the lack of masks is partly causing the spread, but it doesn't necessarily follow that it is from that piece of information. This is just so that I can demonstrate that it's a really big problem and one that probably justifies um, a law. Let's see if we can find out. I'll just stick this in here. Uh, there we go. Right. Um, yeah. So, um, see if we can find any like natural experiment kind of studies that might be useful just to add to our body of evidence. Um, oh, hey, last username, how's it going? Oh, last username, you're going to be on the Hippy Dippy show as well, aren't you? The recruitment show on Sunday. Yeah, cool. Um, so we will be facing off across the aisle, though. Based on what you were saying last time on the previous one you were on, I think we're probably going to broadly agree on the mask issue, because you know one's right to uh, cause harm ends at one's own body, and the evidence is that mask wearing is effective at reducing COVID transmission. So we don't have a right to uh, bring unjustified risks onto other people. Um, I'm honestly not sure who's going to. I should have a look into the other participants a bit. I just saw you on the chat, and uh, yeah, pleased to have you along, because I'd much rather debate with you know people who have a serious ideology and are willing to defend it and are willing to admit where there's an incongruity and so forth, rather than some of the righty commentators out there at the moment, because some of them just don't listen to any kind of evidence or reality, and that's always frustrating. Oh, you're against mask laws, okay. Um, Presumably you think we should wear masks though, just that it shouldn't be the law enforcing that behaviour. Um, Although the actual topic is, should masks be mandatory? So I would argue that any private protection firm we're setting up to provide, private law enforcement for people should probably enforce a requirement to wear masks in any private business that we would want to visit. Um, but if we're restricting it to, legally uh, uh, enforced, then obviously it's a bit of a bit of a clearer case for you. Um, so let's see. Uh, Note down this point. Um, or like community protection groups or whatever other anarchists want to call them. Right. Okay. Um, I suspect I'm going to have less to say about topic two, should health insurance be obligated to cover birth control? because I'm not as familiar with the US healthcare system, um, because it's a bit of a like nightmare jumble of like bad regulation and shitty enterprise and whatnot. Um, though, I mean, yeah, they probably should. Um, like, what are they currently obligated to cover? That's a relevant question, I suppose. Because yeah, I lack sufficient background knowledge here. Um, Supporting the death penalty is going to be a pretty clear one. I can argue that reasonably well. I'll need to uh, provide some actual evidence for, when I claim that there's little evidence that the death penalty actually reduces crime in most areas and things like that. I'll need some empirical work for, but I think I've got the philosophical side reasonably good. Um, Mask norms still in flux because our knowledge about the effects of masks and the virus itself are in flux. In principle, I think it's reasonable to expect others to wear masks in the right circumstances. I think property owners should set their own policy for now. Um, yeah, I mean, I would. I guess it kind of comes down to yeah, it kind of comes down to whether whether we think the topic is saying, should they be mandatory in all circumstances, or should they be mandatory? Sorry, should they be mandatory in all like systems of control, or should they be mandatory according to the current legal system of control? And I certainly agree that private property owners should have a role in um, setting policy. Like, I think it's. I'll, I'll mention this. Um, yeah, we are just gonna have the debate now. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be good. Uh, yeah, I mean that's how we used to do it in Rum and Rights, my old debate group. Kind of have an area to talk around, and then you know discuss what we think of the topic generally. Mm, can't bloody spell today. Ooh, what's this from J Tibbs? Ah, excellent. This is exactly what I was thinking of. Looks things. Yeah. So, um, I was wondering uh, whether any of these studies would be out yet, because obviously these kind of natural experiments take a while to do, um, but evidently there is 30.4%. The increase for parts of South Carolina without a mask mandate, while overall cases dropped 15.1% in areas with mandates. Uh, whew. I mean, obviously this needs to go through proper, careful analysis and peer review for all the limitations of peer review. But that is a pretty big distinction. Thank you very much, J-Tips. Indeed. Yeah, Yes, that is indeed very relevant. Um, and this is this is kind of an advantage of the the laboratory of democracy that is the US, that it does often make for some really useful natural comparisons, natural experiments between counties and states, especially between counties. I mean, you do have the problem of, leaking across the borders because most people don't, or a lot of people at least don't, uh, you know, live and work and play all in the same county. But nevertheless, being able to get very similar areas in geographic proximity and have, one of them ban X thing and one of them not, it's good for epidemiologists. Yeah, no, the anti-maskers, or at least the more fervent ones, won't. But one of my interlocutors is going to be last used name, who uh, seems to genuinely care about evidence, and it's not just going to be convincing the other people on the panel. Hopefully, I'll do a little bit of convincing of people listening, or at least they'll find me unconvincing but interesting and give me a follow. Um, but yeah. Uh, okay. Right. That is useful stuff. Um, like, yeah. Topic two. It's definitely an important topic. Um, and like certainly my intuition is that health insurance probably should uh, be obligated to provide birth control if it's already obligated to provide certain other services. Um, oh, to raise a potential critique of these natural experiments with masks, I would expect, maybe wrong if so, it would be useful to know, a place where masks are mandated, a place where people may self-select to isolate and be more responsible generally. That is certainly a potential confound. Um, yeah, it's difficult to. I think that's worth mentioning because that's the kind of thing that we're going to need to assess with like actual um, actual research. And I mean, it's been still a relatively short space of time, and you need at least a couple of months to like do these observational studies, let alone um, uh, to write the thing up and so forth. Um, yeah, that's a good call. Um, I might, as I present that, I think it's often worth like presenting the obvious critique as part of when you're presenting your evidence, not least because otherwise it can come across as disingenuous. If you've kind of presented something with, let's say, a pretty big potential limitation there. Um, but that's it's a issue of converging evidence, and that's why I'm wanting to get plenty of different pieces of evidence. Um, you reckon, J Tibbs? Uh, my concern is often that if I present a piece of evidence with an obvious critique, if I don't bring up the critique and nobody else on the panel does, there'll be a substantial portion of the viewers who'll think, hang on a second, I can think of a clear way this could be wrong. And yeah, I don't know. I might play it by ear, but I'll make a note of that. Yeah, it's I would tend to go with Neon Golden's route, but uh, like I guess part of the issue is my background for like public debating is with animal rights protesters uh, who are focused on animal research, and most of their arguments were really bad. So I'd often like bring up a critique just to smash it down, um, because it was pretty easy to do so. But yeah, in this case, like that is a very solid critique, and it's I would strongly suspect that the effect is going to be quite large. Uh, yeah, well, hopefully everyone's going to be. I like to assume good faith, so hopefully everyone's going to be arguing in good faith. I should actually look into the other people because I do have we've got a little group chat. Um, let's see. I'll make a note here. I'm not certain who's right and who's left, but doo -doo -doo. So, let's see. Uh, right, these are at least their Discord usernames, so I will have to do a little bit of research. Um, yeah, a couple of the people on the last debate were not arguing in good faith indeed. Um, uh, which one? The fucking lawyer guy. I keep on forgetting his name, but I, I, he must have just been making shit up. Um, it was it was not good. Uh, entertaining though. Let's see. Right. See if there's any more. Okay, here's a natural experiment. Yeah, I mean, again, it's. I'll read this in greater detail off stream. Again, it does seem that there's the. Let's see. Meta-analysis based on randomized controlled trials. Decline in transmission risk, yeah, obviously. Um, oh, something I will have to inevitably um, deal with is the point that um, the CDC, I think it was, and several health organisations and health commentators and so forth said that there's no evidence that masks are effective in preventing like community transmission, and made some just ill-advised statements regarding the efficacy of masks because they were trying to persuade people to not hoard them and leave them for higher risk medical workers, which like it's a reasonable goal. Um, I think it's also a case study of why health experts shouldn't generally lie to the populace, because it's created somewhat of backlash, even if it did initially prevent fewer transmissions among prevent more transmissions among healthcare workers. Um, but inevitably, someone's going to bring that up as a point because it always gets brought up. So who was it? Was it the CDC? I mean, maybe it's just. No, here we go. Yeah, true, J Tibbs. This is often something I try to keep that in mind. And I think with my experience of like political campaigning, I do a better job of it typically than most EAs and rationalists. But like that's not a super high standard. Uh, uh, ah, this looks rather good, thank you. Yeah, so we've got this study already. This is really good. Thank you, Josh, for this study. Um, yeah, no, that's a good point, Amy. And it's maybe something that I don't know. I don't know if we're supposed to like coordinate between speakers or whatnot, but I suspect that some of the other people on the panel will have good, compelling arguments. And yeah, if I can help to bolster them with relevant information, that seems like something worth doing. Uh, oh, excuse me. Well, this is just an excellent site, JTibs. Thank you. Um, for the safety goggles. Probably because it's using lasers to scatter the light and generate that image. Um, yeah, there you go. Laser light scattering. So probably don't want that in the eyes. I wonder what power laser they're using. They're probably not super powerful, but still. Yeah. No, this is excellent. I'm going to stick this in the big. Actually, I'm going to put this at the top because if I just link one thing, it's probably got to be this, isn't it? It's like here's all the fucking evidence. Maybe that's what these little droplets coming from because he's just speaking. But maybe he's speaking a little bit out of his nose. Let's see. Ooh, could save 5% of GDP, says some economist, but still. Uh, Authors of the report. Okay, that's potentially useful as well. Because if we don't care about people, we should at least care about the economy. Obviously, the economy is just people and how they interact under a status of scarcity. But uh, yeah, useful bonus. Um, cool. Right. Okay, that is excellent. I think we're probably solid on the evidence there. And for the opening statement, um, I think I can just make my fairly straightforward argument of, you know, we should be able to engage in things that risk us personally, and we should be uh, uh, concerned about setting up any new law because these things have consequences. However, the evidence is such that the benefit to others from you wearing a mask and specifically the reduction of risk to others from you wearing a mask is very compelling, and as such, you know, fucking put one on, and we should mandate it, whether that's by law or by business owners doing it. I'm willing to defend like legislation for it because I think that's somewhat harder position, marginally harder position to defend. Um, oh, here we go. Document Public Health England on cost effectiveness of publicly funded contraception. I mean, if we're just looking at the societal effects, that's yeah, return on investment analysis is going to be useful. Let's see, so uh, let's bring that over here, and right, so topic one, should mask be mandatory? Topic two, go. Right. Right. Just generally do sources here. Right. Okay. Because yeah, if we can get some evidence from a few different countries, that's excuse me, that's going to be good. Uh, yeah, I assume the topic is focused on the US, um, which like is reasonable, but means that I'm going to be less able to talk because yeah, what the fuck is up with it? I don't pretend to understand it meaningfully. Um, okay, just add this on. Right. Um, yeah, I mean I'd say when it comes to like the specifics of the insurance industry, you know, what else they uh, are mandated to include, then that's stuff that I can't, address really well. Um, but I think papers like this, looking at generally, the economic effectiveness of birth control, looking at generally the positive effects of it. These are things that, with appropriate caveats, we can apply across borders. Um, because we're talking generally about. I mean, there's a few points here. What should insurance be mandated to cover? What generally should like healthcare include? Which kind of leads us to set up certain standards. So say, we would be willing to fund anything that gets more than X quality adjusted life years per Y dollars. Um, and then there's the empirical point of what things meet that threshold. And something like this will hopefully give some indication as to that second point, whether it's whatever threshold we agree on. I doubt there'll be much agreement, but whatever threshold we go with, um, we can use research like this to judge whether it's likely to meet that threshold. Of course, with the proviso that fucking everything in healthcare costs more in the US because it's a bit fucky. Uh, okay, yeah. So 246 million spent on contraception. Uh, okay, some assumptions that don't seem mad. Uh, though, I'm not a healthcare economist, so. Mm. Hmm. Yeah, a lot of this does work on British assumptions. Uh, but see, haven't looked into specific pay for much, but may end up being relevant to raise the contraception is used far more for birth control. Yeah, this is also very true. Um, no, no, Control K, damn it. There we go. Let's see. Okay, if we can find some US specific stuff, that would be great. See publications. This economic effects of contraceptive access. Come on. Because yeah, if I'm only presenting British stuff, I would probably be accused of being a useless Britbonger. um, Here we go. I wish sites would leave uh, links in place. Oh yeah, I certainly won't be able to come up with a definitive answer to this one because it relies very heavily on like specifics of US healthcare systems that I don't even start to understand. Um, but I think nevertheless, uh, I can present some evidence that might contribute towards the debate, um, and which might help people who want to make points more uh, nuanced than mine. Also, it's probably worth my while between now and then just reading up a bit generally about the impacts of different birth control options, because I suspect, while I'm not an economist by any means, I suspect there'll be some misunderstandings of the physiological and side effects of these these interventions. And yeah, uh, while, like I say, not an economist, I am a medical scientist. I can push back on that kind of, yeah, just being able to push back on any bad points. Exactly. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll kind of say look, I don't have a strong, dog in this fight or whatever. I'm not an expert on U.S. insurance, but I can provide a little bit of insight into the actual medical science of birth control, which suggests that uh, yeah, that's not a bad shout, J Tibbs. Uh, so is there? Am I just making this up? There's a site, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a site that just has the kind of intro arguments in a bunch of different domains. Um, I think it's called something like pro and anti, or for and against, or something along those lines. Um, I don't want cytokine interleukin. Pro and con, maybe. Uh, pro cron debate. Oh, there we go. Is this it? Is it? Um, Something like this. Uh, Debate dog. Yeah, quite possibly. Um, Why is this giving me a security risk? That's fine. Uh, let's see. 'Cause yeah. Um, oh no. Uh, no. Okay. I think it might be this one. Uh, None of these is why. Okay, this one I might do off stream, um, because it's just going to be mostly me reading up on basic basic stuff. Um, let's see. Oh, do you remember the World Trade Center Muslim Center debate? People got very angry about that. I don't. Sex and gender, no. Sports, economy and taxes. Okay, well, I'll find. I think this is the site I was thinking of. Let's just check one. Gun control. I think, was it this site? There was one of these sites I got asked to write the pro position for animal research. Uh, Fucking ages ago. Okay, yeah, these are. I think this is what I was looking for. Um, so I'll look into this later. But yeah, I think uh, note to self: Google basic arguments, because yeah, I know enough about the medical science. Actually, better on female reproductive anatomy than I am on male, because I was sick for the like week of male reproductive lectures at undergrad in first year. Um, so like I know most of the bits, but I couldn't give you nearly as detailed account of spermatogenesis as I could of like ovulation or whatnot. Um, I feel like the common anti-contraception arguments in the US that I've heard are that A, birth control is dangerous and bad for women, which, yeah, is certainly something I can contribute to because I can talk about the actual side effects we know of and why that's an argument for further research. Um, B, that it's taxpayer funded, funding women getting into sleep around being responsible, which is something that I can at least like debate a bit in terms of um, well, I th- it depends on the general positions of the people debating, because we can't just assume that it's going to be, you know, for generic righties. Um, I mean, you know, last username is one of them, and um, I wouldn't accuse him of being, you know, a standard off-the-shelf conservative by any means. Um, so I can't like assume too much about what their position's going to be. But if one of them does hold anti-abortion views, you know, the best way of preventing abortions is to provide good birth control. I mean, not that that's an argument that ever sticks, because you know they don't always care about consistency, but I think it's a pretty slam dunk one for people who are kind of undecided, or at least for people who are on my side. And you know, if I can get the people on my side to cheer, then that's what it's all about, really. My kid, of course. Um, I have no idea what stance we've taken. These are very common anti-arguments. Yeah, yeah. Um, so I might move on to just doing a quick bit on death penalty, as there's a few empirical points there. Um, oh, there is also the torture one. Um, Amy, you and I have been discussing this quite a bit recently because we've been watching through 24, and obviously Jack Bauer likes his torture very much. But you know, my general take is that we might be able to construct, or we certainly can construct some hyper I do if it comes up, because it's the bonus topic. So if we run out of time, it might not come up, but yeah, I will have to have to make some sort of Jack reference. We love our Jack, even though he's a utter bastard. Um, yeah, it's. I think we can construct like hypothetical scenarios in which torture would be justifiable, um, but those would be extreme outliers, and the vast majority of the time, torture is both inhumane, is not effective at extracting reliable information from captives, is certainly in terms of opportunity cost is worse than alternative interrogation methods, and um, the even allowing it in the case of uh, even like officially allowing it in the few cases where it might be worthwhile will lead to an unacceptable culture of using torture as a kind of first line intervention, as we saw with the CIA throughout the early to mid 2000s. Uh, so, maybe if we do have like literally a ticking nuke and we know this terrorist has the code and we know the terrorist has a low threshold for pain tolerance and if we just make, if we just break one little kneecap, then it's going to save millions from a nuke, then okay, sure. But I think a better way of dealing with that is the, you know, standard system of like pardons. If there is ever a scenario where a CIA officer needs to torture someone in order to, save thousands from imminent destruction, yeah, the president can pardon them after the 24-hour period where everyone was threatened by nukes. Um, but like those scenarios basically never happen. And uh, here we go. Okay, there we go. Thank you, J Tibbs. That is uh, that is pretty much what that's basically like what the debate is. Obviously, it's including um, uh, feminine products broadly includes things uh, for dealing with periods, but I think there's an even stronger case for paying for. At least there's an even stronger case if one cares about the kind of moral angle. If um, one thinks that that has like at all relevant factor in this. Uh, uh, Pay for feminine products. Okay, so this is just paying for rather than like tax. Uh, okay, the person con isn't arguing very well. Uh, yeah, this person really isn't arguing super well. Um, like, a lot of this does depend on how one, yeah, just I say a lot of this depends on both what one assumes about the healthcare system um, and like what one thinks that system should pay for. So I think the best thing I can I'm just gonna stick this in. I think the best thing I can really do is assemble um, some uh, assemble some relevant evidence and be ready to bring it in. Uh, should not be free. If you don't want to have a baby, then use a condom. Well, condom is birth control, so that isn't really getting to the key point. Okay. Um, yeah, I doubt this continuing. Um, Still useful for the purposes of seeing kind of the standard entry level arguments brought up. Okay, so um, is there any Planned Parenthood and get contraception? Yeah, this little bit of let's see. Okay, this might have some useful things in. Just a sec. No, why should I have to be forced to, why should someone be forced to pay for another's lifestyle? Do you pay for health insurance? You're paying for someone else's lifestyle. I don't think anyone should be forced to pay for health insurance either. If they want to do it, I'm fine. But that doesn't change the fact that insurance is necessarily paying for other people's lifestyles. It's an amortization of costs, like obviously. Um, Yeah, I mean, certainly if someone believes fundamentally that health insurance shouldn't be mandated to pay for anything, or conversely, one believes that health insurance is terrible and shouldn't exist, then one has a pretty ironclad argument against all of this. That's better. Getting some nasty bleeding there, but. Uh, if one accepts that there is some level of command that the government should be able to exert over health insurance, which is very popular in the US, whether people realize it or not. Everybody loves the um, pre-existing condition mandate from Obamacare, even to the point that Trump is saying he'll protect pre-existing conditions as like completely guaranteed, definitely going to protect it. Don't worry, folks. Obviously, he's not, but he uses it as a talking point. Um, so saying that there should be nothing that's mandated by health insurance in the US is quite an extreme position, um, or at least it's outside the Overton window. Um, so let's say I'm uh, so yeah, I'm going to work from those assumptions just because otherwise, um, yeah, the it's my understanding that the ACA Obamacare like entirely works around like coverage mandates. That's its kind of, or predominantly at least, that's its like main tool um, for operating. And like my based on what I understand of US healthcare, which again is not much, something like Buttigieg's idea seems pretty. Oh, it's very different in the context of ACA than in general. Um, is it? Again, I not expert enough, but the we're presumably talking about a coverage mandate here. Like we're talking about should health insurance be obligated to cover birth control, assuming that's a legal obligation. um, it would be comparable to the ACA, which at least seems popular. Obviously, popularity isn't a guarantee of something being good, but you know, uh, positions. Right. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to have more of an interesting time with the other three, uh, or at least going to be more able to like provide some interesting arguments with the other three. Um, but it it is a rather important issue, one that's oft uh, considered. Um, Though, if anyone goes down the route of arguing that we're overpopulated, I will push back on that. I think there's a good case to be made that the world and the US are both underpopulated, at least according to certain metrics. So, that might be an interesting direction to go in. But as far as the core thing goes, you know, I think birth control's good and people should have lots of access to it. And, if that is best achieved through health insurance, then great. If not, then do it another way. Uh, oh, fucking don't even get me started on antinatalists, honestly. Like, there are so many reasons why we might want more people, and the prime argument against wanting more people is that we are sucking up the Earth's limited resources, and if we continue at current rates of consumption with an expanded population, then things will get very bad. Which is true. True. If everybody, if we were to double the world's population and everyone would start living like Americans, then yeah, that would be a really really bad situation. But fortunately, rates of consumption of most resources in the developed world are trending down, and we have many technological reasons to um, to believe that it's going to continue in that direction. So the consumption rates are likely to drop, and particularly of the most damaging things we consume. Um, Antinatalism is a great argument against utilitarianism. How do you mean? Because I know negative utilitarians are antinatalists, but almost nobody is actually a negative utilitarian. It's like not a position that many philosophers at least hold seriously. Negative utilitarianism is often like brought up as a kind of theoretical counterpart to typical, positive utilitarianism, but at least in its strong form. Toby Ord had a good is it a blog post or a paper? He wrote something good about this recently. Um, have a look. Uh, Here we go. Yeah, this is post. Um, so I'm not sure if this has been like published, but oh, it wasn't recently. It was 2013, so fucking ages ago. But still, good post. Um, uh, let's close some of this stuff. Just try to keep my tabs vaguely under control. Let's see. Right. Should health insurance people need to cover birth control? Um, and do you support the death penalty? Right. I'll need to grab a few more bits of evidence here. Fortunately, I've got tomorrow to do this, so I'll probably spend a chunk of tomorrow night just like turning this into something a little bit more coherent. Oh, excuse me. Oh, what's my blood glucose looking like? Just need to do a little test. Right. Yeah. Do you support the death penalty? Nah. My evidence. Haven't supported it in years, mate. Further evidence. Rewind the video 5 minutes. Like, nah. Why I don't support the death penalty though is, I think, I mean, I did used to when I was like 13, 14 sort of time. my argument was that excuse me. Oh, if I just reconnected. My argument was that a bullet is cheaper than 30 years in a jail cell, but turns out it kind of isn't if you're going to um, allow for an appropriate level, or even like approaching appropriate level of appeals and such forth. Turns out death penalty doesn't work super well economically, um, and I kind of have a, I don't know if it's my old school deontologist days holding over, but um, like I'm kind of uncomfortable with the state just murdering people, and obviously there are strong utilitarian arguments against that as well. But um, yeah, we generally shouldn't kill people except in like direct uh, self-defense or defense of others, and if they're not threatening anyone, doesn't doesn't seem like a good look. Um, Obviously, I think there are some consequentialist reasons why we shouldn't be giving the state that kind of power. Um, so let's start. Start looking for some links. Uh, economic analysis, death penalty. Um, yeah, I mean this is the case as well. Like the Innocence Project, I'll be looking up, uh, which I think is looking into people who've been wrongly convicted. Oh, Amy's just linked. Uh, yeah, there we go. Cool. Um, Thank you, Amy. Uh, yeah. Idiots seldom differ, though. I hate all of those the um like aphorisms that have two exactly opposing interpretations. Like too many cooks spoil the broth, but many hands make light work. Like fucking ah. However, in this case, I think it is. I mean, yeah, this is the other thing. It's and it is. I think it's a slope we should be concerned about slipping down. Is going from just killing people for the most heinous murders to killing them for uh, serious drug crimes and other things that are very bad and we definitely don't want them doing, to killing them for stealing, or maybe killing them for being very rude about the leader, or etc. etc. Um, and then maybe we're just guillotining anyone who steps outside of the social norms, like in actually is did Uganda stop executing people recently? Uh, oh no, they're considering implementing a bill that would introduce the death penalty. Ugh. So yeah, that's not fucking great. Um, so yeah, the I mean, various of these projects have demonstrated that like innocent people get it all the time. We've got so I'll start making some general points. So, may as well note these things I'm saying down rather than just making the argument to my few viewers, because uh, this is supposed to be a preparation for a debate. Um, let's see. So there's instance. Um, and though the slippery slope can be used fallaciously, I think it is often something we should at least give serious consideration. Thank you. I was just about to look up racial bias, and you saved me the hassle. Um, let's see. Right, there we go. The economic cost. University Avenue undergraduate journal economics. Maybe not. Not that Martin Kasten isn't, wasn't a very good undergraduate, but it's a like 20-odd-year-old paper. Why that is coming up top, I'm not sure. It's been cited by 5 though. Not bad. Nothing I published as an undergraduate got cited by 5 people. Though some of the stuff I got published before did. Not in like journals though. Right. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I don't understand why the. Well, I have some idea, but um, for a rhetorical purpose, I don't understand why the US still has the death penalty. It's like, do any other developed countries with more than a couple of million inhabitants have it? Let's see. 53 countries. Oh, I'm not bringing the sun. There we go. Capital punishment by country. Okay, so we've got blue and green are ones who basically aren't committing executions. Um, like, I'm even not sure about the. I mean, it makes sense given that it was the standard at the time, I believe, under Iraqi law. But I'm even uncomfortable about like executing, Saddam Hussein and people like this. Um, I absolutely think he should have been, locked up forever. But uh, yeah, though, I'm not going to like cry over mass murderers and dictators being executed. Just like kind of wish they wouldn't. Um, Interesting. Is Djibouti there? Seems to have banned it. Um, yeah, so okay, 55. It's um, not a great range to be, sharing a category with there. Although, yeah, actually, I did forget about Japan. Japan does still execute people and is pretty unpleasant about it. They just like I don't think they give a notification of exactly when it's going to be. They just like haul people off and kill them without warning. Say haul people off, people in jail already, but yeah. There we go. So, I mean, this is this like the key killer point here is the fact that it's not actually an effective deterrent. Uh, so I'd like to gather a few bits of evidence along these lines. Um, thank you. Okay. Um, think I might. Think I might wrap up there as I need to do a few biological things, annoyingly. Um, and like after this, it's kind of just going to be me like formatting this so I can read it and grabbing a few more studies. Um, yeah. Uh, but I hope people have enjoyed my little uh, research stream here, and I will return on, well, Monday morning for me, but Sunday evening for those in the US at, here we go, 8 p.m. EST this coming Sunday. I will be sharing the podcast with all these folks, plus of course Dylan Burns, who is very kindly having me on. And yeah, looking forward to it. So, right, I will catch you all later. Um, yeah, I'm going to go deal with various biological bullshits. But you have a nice weekend, and ta-ta. Bye.